I've gathered all my supplies and I'm ready to get started. So we're going to need one balloon, some glue. I'm using clear glue today, but you could also use the regular white glue. And I've watered it down in a bowl here. It's about 2/3 glue, 1/3 water. So it's about the consistency of about 2% milk. And then I've got a sponge brush applicator here, picked it up at the hardware store. I have another bowl. This is going to hold my balloon, tissue paper, masking tape, and then an assortment of things from nature. So this is a great project to do if you live somewhere where the fall colors are changing, using some of those beautiful red or orange maple leaves or some golden aspens. I live in a place where we do not have fall colors. So instead, I'm using some bougainvillea leaves, and I found some little ferns growing around in my yard, and I thought those would look lovely. You can use whatever you find in your area. Choose something that's relatively thin so that it will lay nicely on your lantern. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So to get started, I've torn my tissue paper into pieces, which is a really fun thing for the kids to help do, tearing up the paper. They're all different sizes. You know, some are almost as big as my hand. Some are more like strips. We can use a whole variety of shapes and sizes here. So tear them up, not too small, but I would say, you know, about the size of your hand would be the biggest you'd want to go. And then the trick to this project is the bowl. So we're actually going to tape this balloon into the bowl all the way around so that as I'm working, the balloon cannot roll away from me. So I'm going to go ahead and tape my balloon to the bowl. So I'm going to turn it upside down to get started, and then I'm just using long strips of masking tape, and I'm going to tape all the way around my balloon like this to the bowl. Okay, now my balloon is nice and secure in my bowl and I'm ready to get started. So I'm going to use some of my glue mixture here, and I'm going to put the glue onto the balloon first. So I'm just going to dab some glue all around my balloon. And we'll start layering on the tissue paper. I can use my fingers to smooth it out. And sometimes I might even go over it gently with my glue brush. We'll work our way all the way around. Overlapping, each piece should overlap for strength. And just gently press the edges of the paper down. I'm going to do one whole coat of paper before I go back to do the second layer. So I'm going to cover my whole balloon first. When the white tissue paper is wet, it's almost invisible. Just kind of fun to play with. So here's a good example of, you see how this piece didn't quite get enough glue to lay down. So I'm going to go back over it with my brush, and I just want to dab lightly. If I try to drag my brush across, I'm most likely going to tear the paper off. So it's more of just a little dab, dab, pat motion here to get the edges to lay down. And I'm making sure that I'm going all the way down to the edge of the bowl too. Okay, so I'm going to go around and check and make sure I've done one whole layer all the way around my balloon. I'm going to look closely to see, oh, I missed a little spot right here. See if I can fill that spot in. There we go. Okay, and once I'm sure that I've done a full first layer all the way around, I'm ready to go on to layer number 2. So I'll apply more glue, careful with the dab dab so I don't tear the paper. And we'll go on to our second layer. Okay, so I went ahead and did a third layer of tissue paper on my balloon, and now I'm ready to start adding some of my bits from nature. So I'm working with bougainvillea here, and I notice as I pull them apart that some of mine are starting to bloom. So there's this thick flower part here in the middle. I'm going to go ahead and cut that off so that what's left is the nice thin part of the leaf that's going to lay flat. Depending on what type of leaves you're working with, you may want to look, check through them and see, is there a thick part of the stem that maybe should be removed before you put it on? It depends entirely on what you're working with. But I think I'm ready to go ahead and start adding my pieces on here. So I'll put some more glue onto my lantern and I'll start laying in my color. Now it's so fun to add color. And again, you could use all sorts of things, dried flowers, fall leaves, whatever you have in your area. But one thing to think about is that we don't want to cover the entire balloon with color because we want the light to shine through. So we don't want to make it too dark that the light doesn't come through. So have fun with it and get creative. Okay, I think I'm pretty happy with my design here. I didn't end up using my ferns. I was just feeling so inspired by the colors of the bougainvillea, so I went with that. But now that I've got my design in place, I'm going to add another layer of tissue paper over the top to hold everything in. So I'm coming back in with another layer of my glue right over the top of my leaves. And I'll place a new layer of tissue right over the top. And right away, you can see that my leaves are going to shine through. This is going to help them be secure. Okay, so I added 2 layers of tissue paper after my leaves went on. So just to recap, we did 3 layers of tissue, then we added our leaves, and then we did 2 more layers of tissue. And all along the way, it's a good idea if you are always trying to add a little extra on the bottom. This is going to be the bottom of your lantern, and when we take it out of the bowl side will be the top. So we do want to make sure we have a nice strength on the bottom of our lantern. A good idea too is after your children have finished, you may want to go back over it with an adult eye and just give it one more little coating of glue everywhere to add a little strength, make sure everything is pressed down nicely. And one more layer of glue is just going to add a little more structural integrity to your lantern all the way around. And now we're going to let this dry overnight, and then I'll show you how to remove it. So this is a great project to do outdoors, like we said. I am working indoors today, but I've covered my table with some paper to protect my surface. But before I leave this to dry, I'm going to move it to a new spot. There's a lot of glue that dripped right here while I was working. So I want to move it to a fresh spot to dry so it doesn't get too stuck in that one spot. Okay, let's see what happens in the morning. All right, my lantern is dried overnight and it's pretty solid. It's looking pretty strong. So I'm ready to take it off the bowl and I'm going to pop the balloon. I want to do that now rather than letting it kind of deflate naturally, because if it changes the shape of my lantern, I can reshape it now. So before I take my balloon off the bowl, I'm going to take a marker here and I'm just going to use the bowl as a handy guide and draw a nice line all the way around. And I can use this later. It'll help me to make a nice clean edge when I'm cutting the edge of it. So we'll go all the way around. Now, if you can see your tape where you left it, you can try peeling off the tape all the way around. I noticed that my tissue paper overlapped a lot over my tape, so I can't really see it very well. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it. So I'm going to use a small pair of scissors here just to make a little snip. And then I'll go back in with my big scissors, but be prepared because the balloon is likely to pop here. You hear the balloon pulling away. It's starting to change the shape of my lantern. Don't panic. We can put it back together here. So I'm going to go ahead and cut all the way around. Balloon's kind of stuck. There we go. And now it has been deflated. I can just pop this back into shape with my hands here. And it's going to go right back to that nice round lantern shape. I'm going to trim the top a little bit more. Okay, here's my beautiful lantern. Now, here's a few little troubleshooting tips for you. Inside my lantern here, you can see I've got a piece of tissue paper that didn't quite stick. So it's not too late. I can go back with a little bit of glue and glue this piece of tissue down. I definitely want to do that because I don't want any loose bits of paper inside the lantern. After I light my candle, that could be dangerous. So make sure everything is nicely glued down on the inside. Also, we're going to attach a handle to the top part here. So we'll end up punching a little hole through our lantern to tie the handle on. It feels like your uppermost layer here of your lantern is very thin and you're worried about it being able to hold a handle. It's, again, not too late. You could go back in now with a little bit of tissue paper and you could even fold a little bit over. So you could take a nice strip of tissue and you could fold it over that top edge all the way around and just add another couple layers to reinforce it if it seems like it's needed. If not, you're good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and glue mine down and I'll go on to show you how to make the handles. Okay, I have glued down my last little bits of stray tissue paper. And I also finger knit a nice long handle here. This handle is about 18 inches long for the finger knitted portion, plus tails that I left on at the end for tying it in place. So I'm going to use a hole puncher here, and I'm going to try to put my hole pretty far down as my puncher is going to let me go here. So it'll be a little bit stronger. And then right on the other side, I'll do another. The reason I want to make my finger knitting so long is that we want our strap to be a good distance, a good safe distance away from the candle's flame, so that we don't have to worry about fingers and hands getting too hot, or the yarn either for that matter. So it's safer to put a nice long handle. So we'll tie this on both sides. So I've tied my handle on both sides with several good strong knots. And now at the top of my handle, I'm going to make a little loop. Mine's about 2 finger widths long. And I'm going to just do a little overhand knot here with my loop. I'm going to try to wiggle that down so that it perfectly fits onto my stick. I want it to be nice and secure. So now I am ready to put the candle in to my lantern. So when you put your candles in, you'll want to secure it in your lantern. So you can either, depending on what type of tea light or votive that you're using, you could glue it into your lantern. You could try a few drips of wax and then setting it in. We want to make sure that your candle is really secure in the base of your lantern so that it can't slide around while your child is walking. And I would also recommend practice walking with your lantern before you light the candle. See if you can walk and hold it so still while you walk. And practice a few times before you're ready to light that candle. And then when the time is right and you're ready for your lantern walk, we can let the magic glow begin.